He didn't even tell Mom. Marcus whispered, his voice shaking. He just left. No note. No goodbye. His phone's off. I think he's gone for good. Jeffrey stared at him, frozen. The kitchen clock ticked louder than usual. Michael Jordan, their father, the legend, had disappeared. What do you mean gone? Jeffrey asked. You talked to him last night, right? I tried. He didn't pick up. I thought maybe he was just resting. But then I checked his room this morning. Empty. Everything gone. His closet. His bags. His car's still here, but... Marcus pulled out his phone, hands trembling. Look at this. It was security footage from their Chicago estate, time-stamped 3:47 a.m. Their father, hood up, head low, walking through the side gate with a single backpack. Alone. No driver. No assistant. No goodbye. Jeffrey blinked. Why would he do that? Marcus exhaled like he'd been holding the answer in his lungs all morning. He's been off, man. Ever since that charity hospital visit. You saw him. He was different. A memory hit Jeffrey like a punch. 3 weeks ago, their dad met a young cancer patient who grabbed his hand and whispered something that made MJ's eyes well up. He didn't talk for the rest of the ride home. You think that messed him up? Jeffrey asked. I think, Marcus said carefully, he's been carrying something for years, and none of us ever noticed. Suddenly, everything felt loud. Wind outside, the hum of the fridge, the ache in their silence. He once told me, Marcus said, voice low, that the scariest part of his fame wasn't losing. It was waking up and realizing he had everything and still felt empty. Jeffrey looked away, and we never really asked how he felt, did we? They both stood still, the weight of absence crashing into their chest. I called his manager. No one knows anything. Not the team. Not the PR. No press releases. It's like he wanted to disappear. Not from the world. From us. Jeffrey leaned on the kitchen counter, staring into nothing. He's the greatest ever. He always had control. But this feels like pain. Marcus nodded. Yeah, and I think he left to deal with something none of us ever saw coming. He paused, then added softly, it's not about basketball anymore. This feels personal. The house fell hollow. The man who had built a legacy brick by brick, titles, trophies, dominance, had walked away from it all in silence. But where'd he go? And why now? Marcus looked out the window, the sky turning gray. I think he's gone to find something we can't give him. Maybe peace. Maybe purpose. Jeffrey whispered, almost to himself. Or maybe he's gone to find himself. Silence again. Then Marcus said the one thing that made both of them flinch. What if he never comes back? His jet took off at 3:47 a.m., the assistant said quietly. Marcus nearly dropped his phone. Wait, what jet? He didn't take a car. There was no driver. He walked out the back gate. The assistant hesitated, his voice barely above a whisper. That's because he had it planned, Marcus. Private runway. No staff. No team. Just Michael. Alone. Jeffrey snatched the phone from Marcus. Where did it go? There was a pause. A long one. Then just 2 words. Unknown destination. Silence gripped the room. The kind that doesn't just stop noise, it stops time. Marcus leaned back against the counter, eyes locked on nothing. Dad's not the type to vanish. He's the type to announce a comeback. Break records, break silence. But this... Jeffrey's jaw clenched. You know what scares me most? Not that he left. Not that we don't know where. But that he didn't want us to know. The thought stabbed through both of them. They had grown up under the shadow of greatness. They knew the media circus. They knew the isolation fame brought. But they always believed that, behind all the noise, their father would never shut them out. Now that belief was cracking piece by piece. Marcus walked toward the living room window and pulled the curtain aside. The early morning sun was climbing the sky, but nothing felt new. It felt heavy, like the day had already lived its worst moment before it even began. I called the hangar, Jeffrey said, scrolling through his phone. The only thing they confirmed was that the jet was fueled and ready for a nonstop international route. No co-pilot, just him and one duffel bag. Marcus turned sharply. International? Jeffrey nodded slowly, which means he didn't just want space. He wanted distance. From this house, this country, us. It was more than a disappearance. It was a rejection, And that truth, whether fair or not, landed like a punch in the chest. Marcus sank into the couch. Do you think he's sick? Jeffrey sat beside him, quieter now. I don't know, but I keep thinking about that kid at the hospital. That one who told him something. Even heroes get tired, Marcus said softly, recalling the moment. Jeffrey nodded. He just stood there, held that kid's hand. And when we tried to leave, he didn't say a word. He just looked lost. It didn't make sense. Michael Jordan was never lost. He was the map, the compass, the force. But now he was a question no one could answer. Marcus pulled out his phone again and stared at a photo, their dad laughing with them at a family cookout 2 summers ago. That version of him felt 1,000 miles away, not just in space but in soul. He carried the world once, Marcus murmured. On the court, in business, in family. But maybe somewhere along the way, he forgot how to carry himself. Jeffrey's throat tightened, and maybe none of us noticed. The pain wasn't in his leaving. The pain was in realizing how long he had been trying to leave, emotionally, mentally, before his body finally followed. Marcus suddenly stood. We have to find him. Yeah, and say what? Jeffrey asked bitterly. We didn't ask the right questions for years, and now we want answers. No, Marcus said firmly. We're not looking for answers. We're looking for him. Jeffrey stared at his brother. He wanted to argue, but deep down, he knew this wasn't about fixing anything. It was about reaching, and maybe healing. We start with the jet, Marcus said. Someone had to file flight clearance. Someone knows something. Jeffrey grabbed his jacket, and if he doesn't want to be found, Marcus's eyes locked with his. Then we show him something he forgot. That family doesn't walk away. Not when it hurts. Not when it's hard. The brothers stepped out into the cold morning. Not as sons of a legend, but as 2 boys chasing a man who had been their hero, and now their mystery. The world thought he disappeared, but to them, it had only just begun. We found him, and you won't believe where. Marcus's voice cracked as he spoke. He was standing outside a small cafe in the middle of a quiet village in Kenya, a place no one would ever expect to find the most recognized face in basketball history. Jeffrey stood next to him, holding his breath. There, just across the dirt road, under a tree's soft shadow, sat Michael Jordan. No bodyguards, no cameras, no crowd. Just Michael, wearing a simple gray t-shirt, old sneakers, and a pair of sunglasses, sipping hot tea from a ceramic cup. He looked peaceful, but that peace hit harder than any chaos. Because it confirmed something neither Marcus nor Jeffrey wanted to admit. Their father chose to be invisible. Jeffrey stepped forward, slowly, cautiously. Dad? Michael looked up. No shock, no panic, just a long, tired breath. Then, quietly, you boys came all this way. Marcus nearly choked up. You vanished. What did you expect us to do? Sit back and hope you call someday. Michael didn't respond right away. He gestured to the wooden bench beside him. Sit. They did. But the silence between them wasn't empty. It was loud, filled with years of unspoken things. Jeffrey broke first. Why here? Michael looked toward the horizon, a long stretch of land where children were playing barefoot soccer with a ball made of twine. I was watching a documentary, he began. It was about kids in this village. One of them said something I couldn't shake off. He paused. We don't have shoes, but we have each other. Marcus blinked. And that made you leave us? No, Michael said quietly. That made me realize I had everything, but I forgot why it mattered. He looked at both his sons, and for the first time, the weight he'd always carried showed on his face. I spent my life proving I was more than just a player, more than just Jordan, but somewhere in that race. I lost Michael. The sentence shattered them. All their lives, they saw him as unbreakable, immortal. But in this moment, he wasn't a goat. He was just a man, tired, broken, trying. Jeffrey leaned forward. We would have understood. We would have stayed beside you if you told us. Michael looked down at his hands. That's the thing. I didn't want you to see me like this. Searching. Weak. I'm your father, not a question mark. Marcus swallowed hard. But you're also human. And we're not here to protect the brand. We're here to find you. A soft breeze moved through the trees. Kids laughed in the distance. And for a second, it felt like time slowed, just enough for healing to begin. I've been building a court here, Michael said after a while. For the village. For the kids. They don't know who I am. They just know I bring sneakers and balls every Sunday. That's enough. Jeffrey's eyes welled up. So that's what peace looks like. Michael gave a tired smile. No, this is what starting over looks like. Marcus looked at him with a new understanding. You're not lost, are you? Michael shook his head. No, but I was. And maybe I needed to disappear just to remember who I am without the noise. They sat there, side by side, 3 men and 1,000 unspoken stories between them. Not all wounds healed instantly, but some hearts finally cracked open wide enough to let light back in. And in that dusty little village, without a spotlight or stadium, the greatest player of all time found something far greater than applause. He found himself. That why? The words came out of Marcus like a whisper, but they landed with the force of everything he'd held in for years. They were sitting under the same tree, hours after that first conversation. The sun had started to dip. The kids had gone. The tea had gone cold. But the questions? Still boiling inside. Michael didn't respond right away. His eyes were locked on the horizon, where the village hills folded into each other like silent witnesses to a quiet storm. Jeffrey leaned in too, his voice steady but low. All those birthdays, all those dinners, the games, the messages. We thought maybe you were sick, or worse. Michael's hands trembled slightly. He folded them together, as if trying to hold his past from slipping through his fingers. I was drowning, he finally said, and I didn't want you to watch me sink. That one sentence cracked something inside both of them. Marcus shook his head, his voice now louder. But we were your sons. You left without even a goodbye. I know, Michael said quietly, and I hate myself for that. He reached into his bag and pulled out a worn journal. Its pages bent, the leather cover faded. He handed it to Marcus. This is where I went when I couldn't talk to anyone. This is everything I felt. Every day, every fear, every time I wanted to come back but couldn't. Jeffrey gently opened the book. The first page read, Day 1. I don't know who I am without the jersey. I'm scared they only love the legend, not the man. Jeffrey looked up, eyes misted. You thought we were part of that crowd? Michael exhaled hard. I didn't know. I spent my whole life being something for everyone, for Nike, for Chicago, for basketball. I forgot how to be a father, a husband, a man. Marcus's jaw clenched. So, your solution was to vanish? No, Michael replied. My mistake was waiting too long to admit I needed help. The wind picked up slightly. A single leaf dropped onto Michael's lap. He held it gently, as if it were his past, fragile, but still real. I had to be alone to hear my own thoughts, he continued. I had to stop being Jordan and remember how to just be Michael. Jeffrey nodded slowly. You did what you had to do, but you broke us on the way. Michael's face fell, and I'll carry that forever. But I'm here now, and I want to start again, if you'll let me. Marcus looked away for a moment, emotions battling inside him. Then, almost broken, he muttered, We waited every single day. Every day. Michael stood up slowly. I know, and I'll spend the rest of my life making that up to you. Not through words. Through action. He walked toward a nearby shed and waved them over. Inside were dozens of shoes, jerseys, balls, all labeled with kids' names. I didn't stop being a father. I just started being one to the wrong people first. But now, I want to come home, if home will still have me. Jeffrey stepped forward first, arms tight around his father. Not as a fan, not as a follower, but as a son. Marcus stood still a moment longer, then joined them. 3 men. One broken past, one fragile future, but finally facing it together. Your fans still wait for one more comeback, a local boy had said days ago, unaware of who he was talking to. Michael had smiled gently then, the kind of smile that hides both pride and pain. But now, as he walked barefoot through the garden with his 2 sons beside him, he knew the real comeback had already happened, just not the way the world expected. Back in the small cottage, the walls were now covered with photos, not of championships or MVP trophies, but of moments that never made headlines. A young boy with cancer smiling in a wheelchair, a village girl holding her first basketball, a torn jersey signed with love from Mike. No cameras, No crowd. Just truth. Jeffrey and Marcus had spent the last few days watching their father not as a basketball icon, but as a man rebuilding from ashes, slowly, quietly, honestly. "Dad," Marcus asked one morning, "do you miss it?" Michael paused while pouring tea, looking out at the rising sun. "I miss the feeling of it, the roar, the purpose. But the fame? No, that wasn't real. This is." He pointed outside where kids were laughing, chasing a worn-out basketball on a crooked court. He wasn't wearing Jordans anymore. He didn't have his name on banners. But his heart was finally in the right place. And for the first time in decades, Michael Jordan wasn't chasing greatness. He was living peace. The day they left was quiet. No paparazzi, no press. Just a few handshakes, tearful hugs, and a lot of silence. Jeffrey noticed how different his father looked now. Not physically, but spiritually. Lighter, unburdened. At the airport, Marcus looked over at his father, then said, "You might never play again. They may never cheer again. But I've never been prouder of you than I am right now." Michael didn't answer right away. He just put a hand on Marcus's shoulder, firm, warm, present. That was enough. Weeks later, news broke that Michael Jordan had been spotted overseas. No official statement. No press release. No sponsorship. Just a blurry photo of him handing a ball to a group of school kids. His face lit up like a sunrise. The media tried to spin it. Is Jordan training the next generation? MJ's secret comeback mission? But the truth was simpler than any headline. He wasn't coming back to the NBA. He wasn't chasing legacy anymore. He had already written the greatest chapters of that book. Now, he was writing something smaller, quieter, but perhaps even more beautiful. One evening, months later, Marcus sat at his kitchen table, flipping through his father's old journal. On the last page, scribbled in faded ink, were 7 words that made his chest tighten. "I thought I had lost them forever." Underneath, newer ink. A different pen, a different hand. Marcus had written, "You didn't. You found us again." He closed the journal, tears running down his cheeks, not from pain this time, but from healing.